Welcome, Eleanor. Today we're going to delve into a really important topic, why faith leaders stay silent on climate. It's a critical area of study because despite significant calls for action, particularly from figures like the Pope, we often see an unexpected silence on climate change within U.S. churches.
Thank you, Lila. I'm really motivated to understand this better. It seems like such a crucial issue, and I've always wondered why there isn't more discourse from the pulpit, especially given its global impact.
Precisely. This silence, from local clergy, even when they have personal concerns, really hinders congregational engagement and wider public discourse on climate action. We'll explore the various reasons behind this phenomenon. Indeed, to quantify this silence, our analysis of over 700,000 Catholic service transcripts reveals that only 0.40% mention climate change. Furthermore, most of these mentions are brief, indicating a minimal engagement with the topic.
So less than 0.5% of Catholic services mention climate change. Is this low engagement specific to Catholic congregations, or is it a broader trend across U.S. churches?
That's an excellent question, Eleanor. This silence is not unique to Catholic congregations. Other denominations also show minimal engagement, with the issue largely absent from American church services. However, there are some denominational differences.
Could you elaborate on those differences? Which denominations show more or less engagement?
Certainly, the United Church of Christ, UCC, and Presbyterian Church, USA, PCUSA, show higher engagement, particularly around Earth Day, though their overall mentions remain minimal. In contrast, the Southern Baptist Convention, SBC, and Association of Related Churches, ARC, exhibit similarly low levels of discussion as the Roman Catholic Church.
So while the silence is widespread, some denominations like the UCC and PCUSA are slightly more active, especially for specific events. This clarifies the extent of the absence. What factors contribute to this widespread clergy silence?
Several factors contribute. Clergy may avoid discussing climate change due to its perceived political controversy. They might also feel unqualified to address scientific claims or prefer to focus on more transcendent theological themes in their sermons.
The political controversy aspect seems significant. How does the overlap between religious and partisan identity play into this silence?
The overlap between religious and partisan identity, particularly among conservative denominations, can contribute to resistance against climate action. When climate change is framed as a partisan issue, clergy may hesitate to address it to avoid alienating congregants or being perceived as taking a political stance.
That makes sense. And regarding the feeling of being unqualified or preferring transcendent themes, how does that manifest, especially within the Catholic context?
For some, the scientific complexity of climate change can be daunting, leading clergy to feel ill-equipped to discuss it accurately. Within Catholicism, church teachings on social issues like climate change are often seen as less relevant or less central than moral teachings, which can further deprioritize its discussion from the pulpit.
So clergy silence stems from a mix of political concerns, perceived lack of expertise, a focus on traditional theological themes, and for Catholics, a prioritization of moral over social teachings. What are the broader implications of this silence?
The lack of discourse on climate change in churches may significantly influence public opinion and policy. This is particularly relevant given the disproportionate number of Catholics in U.S. political offices who may be influenced by the absence of this topic in their faith communities.
So, without clergy advocating for climate action, congregants might not prioritize it. Does this extend to their voting and political engagement?
Precisely. Without church leaders advocating for climate action, congregants may not prioritize it in their voting or broader political engagement. The pulpit is a powerful platform for shaping values and priorities, and its silence on this issue can have tangible effects.
This sounds like it could contribute to an attitude-behavior gap. Could you explain what that means in this context?
The attitude-behavior gap refers to a discrepancy where individuals express concern about an issue but do not engage in meaningful action or activism related to it. In this case, the silence from the pulpit may contribute to this gap, where congregants concerned about climate change do not translate that concern into active engagement.
So even if people are personally worried about climate change, the lack of church leadership on the issue means they might not feel compelled to act on it. This segment has thoroughly analyzed the reasons and implications. Are there any examples of churches beginning to break this silence?
Yes, some churches are beginning to incorporate climate change discussions. For instance, All Saints Catholic Church in Syracuse, New York, has started integrating climate change into services, aligning the issue with Christian principles of caring for creation. This demonstrates a potential for change.
That's encouraging. What strategies are proving effective for these churches in increasing engagement?
Engaging Christians through their social identity and framing climate change in ways that resonate with theological values, such as stewardship or creation care, are effective strategies. A bottom-up approach, encouraging direct engagement with local Catholic communities, can also complement broader efforts like those from Pope Francis.
So, the silence of the pulpit is a complex issue driven by political, scientific, and theological factors, leading to significant implications for public engagement. However, there are emerging strategies to integrate climate discourse by connecting it to core faith principles and fostering local engagement. Thank you, Lila.
All right, Eleanor, to wrap up this session, we've thoroughly explored why faith leaders often remain silent on climate change, identifying key drivers like political controversy, perceived lack of expertise, and a preference for transcendent theological themes. We also touched on the significant implications, particularly the attitude-behavior gap among congregants. For your review, I'd suggest focusing on how these contributing factors interlink and lead to that gap. Also, be prepared to discuss the emerging strategies for engagement, like framing climate action through stewardship. That's a crucial takeaway.
Thank you, Layla. That's a very clear summary. I'll definitely concentrate on the interconnectedness of those factors and how they manifest in the attitude-behavior gap. I also want to revisit the specific denominational differences we discussed.
Excellent. That sounds like a solid plan. For our next session, we'll broaden our scope a bit and examine how these dynamics of silence and engagement play out in other contemporary social justice issues within faith communities. It will build directly on what we've covered today.